Zen fam! Welcome to another video. In this particular video I want to start a VR, a video response as we call it in the trade. If you know any YouTubers, please suggest this VR to them. If you are a fellow YouTuber, then please make your own VR, I implore thee. So, I've been thinking recently about games. Duh! And their impact and so on and so forth. And how impactful some games have been upon us as gamers and in turn to the industry. And back and forth. Because it's all symbiotic. Ooh, symbiotic! Yeah, I've had a shave. Tangent boy! Anyway. And I was thinking about a couple of games that have really sort of had a seismic shift in how everything is perceived. Games that they came along, they changed everything, and every once in a while there's a new iteration and it moves the technical conversation on. Now, if you have a couple of games like this, obviously, as I said, please do a video response. Or at very least, get in that comment section. So the first game I want to talk about is going to be a bit of a no-brainer, but Doom. There's something special about Doom. Now, my first go-round with Doom, I have to go back. Oh, back. I was a young dude. And there was a comic shop I used to frequent called Deadhead Comics down Candlemaker Row here in Edinburgh. The shop is apparently still around, but it's moved locations a couple of times since these days. Back in the days of my youth. And I used to go on my lunch break from my training scheme, and then for many years after, when I was at college and after college, when I still used to buy regular comics and manga on at least a monthly if not weekly basis, and I still have all my comics in the loft. But in the back of the comic shop for a wee while there was a wee business called Reality X. Now some of you may have heard me talk about Reality X in past videos when I spoke about virtual reality. And the first virtual reality experience I ever had, which was with Reality X, once they had their own premises. If you want to hear that story again, let me know and I shall recant it for you. But for now, we're going back to their genus, or genus, whichever you like. So, in the back of Deadhead Comics, one teeny tiny little room. I mean, barely bigger than a cupboard. I mean, it was tiny. Literally, there was enough for two people, one person standing, one person sitting, while the person standing gets the person set up, and there was a desk, a chair, and a computer. Now, this was just an average computer because there weren't really much in the way of gaming PCs back then. You had PCs, and sometimes PCs had video games on them. It really was that basic back in the day. We didn't have like graphics cards and cooling and RTX and all the rest of it. It was literally, here's a computer, here's a game, on you go! Sometimes the computer might have been a bit more powerful, might have shelled out a bit more cash, but basically a computer was a computer was a computer, and that was it. And what did I play on that computer? I played Doom. Now, I didn't know at the time, because there weren't really magazines, there wasn't really much in the way of internet, how seismic Doom was at the time. I just thought, hey, this is this cool game. I've heard people talk about it, I've seen it on telly. Cool, I finally get to have a go. And I played this thing. And I got to be fairly decent. I wasn't earth-shattering, but I wasn't rubbish. I was middling to decent. And it was a buttload of fun, and I played it many times. Pretty much most times I would come to the comic shop, I would fork over a couple of quid to go into the back and play Doom. And apparently I wasn't alone, because the guy that ran it felt good enough to actually plough that money and get a loan from the bank, obviously, to then go and start his own business, which I also frequented quite a bit. But Doom has become a staple. I mean, when you consider that Doom informed basically everything we know about a modern first-person shooter. So, yeah, I mean, you look at the original Doom, and you look at Doom the Dark Ages. Wow, how far we have come. Which is a similar story with the second game I wish to speak upon. Street Fighter 2. Now with Street Fighter 2, I was still at school. And every once in a while, my mum and my dad, even though they were divorced, they tried to sort of like keep things civil for a while. And they would take me and my sister to the arcades down at Portobello, for those of you outside of Edinburgh. Portobello is basically, it's a beachfront, it's a promenade. And back in the 90s and to the early thousands, probably in the 80s as well, some brilliant arcades were there. They're all gone now. There's one arcade that's barely an arcade. It's mostly full of one-armed bandits, or as we call them here in Scotland, buggies. And yeah, it's a shadow of its former self. But anyway, and there was this one particular big arcade. It was the big one, and it was the best one, quite frankly. And there was zillions of games. There was a wall of some puggies, but like the rest of it was just like games. And over the years, the games changed and they got better and stuff. But like the first time we went there, and this must have been like about, gotta be like 89, 90, something like that, maybe earlier. And I'm walking around this arcade. What am I going to spend my £5 on? Yeah. It's like I had a choice, you know. I had a choice of some games if we were going to be there a while, and I had £5, and that was going to do me. £5 would be get your coffee these days. My God. Anyway, so I'm wandering this arcade, and I see this big crowd, and I see this screen in the court far off, and there's this bloke in front of a building, and he's square enough in front of another bloke, and he knocks him out, and it pans up the building. There's the logo Street Fighter 2. I'm like, what's that? So I walk over, having never seen Street Fighter, having never heard of Street Fighter. I'd seen things like Streets of Rage and that in a local chippy, you know, I'd seen people play that, so I recognised the graphical style. I figured it must have been, you know, another walk along, beat the crap out of people. Oh no. This was two combatants either side of a screen, played by two humans, and two humans, you know, fighting, but on screen. And I'd heard of such games, but given that all my gaming up till then that I had done had either been a tiny bit of arcade, mostly playing stuff nowhere near as technical as that, or when I was younger still, my mum had bought me and my sister a Commodore 16, a cassette-based system. I mean, the microcomputers, please, they could barely do anything. When you talk about gaming now, I mean, you do better stuff on a phone. Actually, you can do almost anything on a phone these days. Wow. These conversations make me feel old. So, yeah. So there's this big gaggle of kids round the Street Fighter 2. And I sat down, and it was sort of like I had to pick my character. I didn't know what character to pick, and I'm flicking around. And I see this lassie, and I'm like going, oh, what the hell, why not? So I picked, unbeknownst to me, what to be the character I tend to main the most, Chun-Li. And I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and I'm like going, whoa, this is so cool. And it felt so fast and it felt so fluid, and I've never experienced a game anything quite like this. And then when I got beat, I stuck around, I watched a couple of matches, and then I saw a guy use the character I used. But alright, yeah, that's the same one I used. And then this character turns upside down, splits her legs apart, and spins round, crossing the screen in what I now know to be a spinning bird kick. And I couldn't believe, I was like, you could do that? And then I saw fireballs and tigers and all the rest of it, and then sort of like, obviously I had to get back to this game, but I'd already ran out of my money, and I had to wait till we were back the next time. Guess where I headed almost straight away with the next time I went to that arcade? Yeah, I went to that Street Fighter 2 machine. Now look where we are. Street Fighter 6. After all the various sub-numbers and iterations and puzzle fighters and free up gem games and all the rest of it that have come from that, we're now at a stage where we've got Street Fighter 6, where you roam an open world to start fights, and you get costumes and a zillion fighters and music and costumes, and considering how much Street Fighter changed the fighter landscape. I mean, yes, there had been a Street Fighter before, but once we had Street Fighter 2, that seemed to open the floodgates, because from that we seemed to have stuff like Mortal Kombat, and then we moved into the 3D fighters. I mean, your Virtua Fighter, your Tekken, your Soul Blade, your Dead or Alives. I mean, you could even start adding in stuff like Killer Instinct. The list is almost endless. The amount of games that were changed by the appearance of Street Fighter and its cultural impact. The cultural impact of both games, I mean, both games have had movies. Both games have had side comics. Both games are just absolute meme-tastic. Internet projects, everything. So those two games for me, not only are they seminal to gaming, but they're seminal to my personal gaming experience and history. So, as before when I started this video, if you're a gaming YouTuber, or you have a gaming YouTuber you'd like to know better, share this video with them and ask them to make a video response. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hashtag support Scottish YouTubers, and of course, as always, nae bother.